Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is not just another collection of words. It's a reckoning. Not for you, but for them. For those who took your presence for granted, who drained you without a second thought, who assumed that your silence meant submission. They never stopped to think, did they? Never imagined that your absence would be louder than any scream you could muster. They think they own you, don't they? That their validation keeps you breathing, that their approval defines your worth. But let me ask you this. What happens when you stop giving them the satisfaction of your presence? What happens when the very thing they relied on, the very thing they abused, is gone? They didn't prepare for that. They didn't think far enough ahead. But you will. But here's the truth. The longer you wait, the more you lose. Because the world isn't coming to save you. The people who hurt you aren't going to wake up one day and suddenly understand your worth. And every moment you spend waiting for something to change is a moment you'll never get back. Every day you stay, you lose a piece of yourself. And one day, if you're not careful, there may be nothing left. You feel it, the slow unraveling of your spirit, the quiet resignation that settles in when you realize that this might just be your life, the frustration of knowing you deserve more but feeling powerless to reach for it, the hopelessness of waking up every day and realizing that nothing has changed and that nothing will change unless you do something about it. Hopelessness is a heavy thing, isn't it? But it sits on your chest, making it hard to breathe. It whispers in your ear, telling you that this is just the way things are, that you should stop dreaming of more. And frustration, that's the fire that burns inside you. The anger that comes from knowing you're capable of so much more, but feeling trapped by circumstances, by fear, by doubt. It's like a bird trapped in a cage, flapping its wings so hard it forgets it ever knew how to fly. And yet, you stay. You stay because leaving feels like surrender. You stay because the fear of the unknown is greater than the pain of what you already know. You tell yourself that things will get better, that if you just hold on a little longer, everything will change. But deep down you know the truth. Things won't get better if you keep doing the same thing. Nothing will change if you stay in the same place. You're not just stuck, you're sinking. And the longer you stay, the harder it will be to pull yourself out. Because staying isn't just about where you are physically, it's about where you are emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It's about clinging to a version of yourself that no longer exists, to relationships that no longer serve you, to a life that no longer fulfills you. And every moment you spend stuck is a moment you're robbing yourself of something better. But I get it. Leaving is terrifying. The idea of stepping away from everything you've known, of walking into the unknown, feels like too much. It feels like failure, like defeat, like giving up. But what if leaving isn't surrender? What if leaving is the ultimate act of courage? What if walking away from what's breaking you is the first step towards saving yourself? You've been told that staying is noble, that enduring is strength, that sacrificing yourself for others is what makes you good. But let me ask you this. What's noble about losing yourself? What's strong about staying silent? What's good about sacrificing your happiness for people who don't even notice? Staying isn't strength, it's fear. It's the fear of what might happen if you choose yourself for once. And that fear is what keeps you stuck. But let's be honest, what's the alternative? Staying where you are, doing what you've always done, living a life that feels like it's not even yours anymore? Is that really what you want? Or do you want more? Do you want freedom, peace, joy? Do you want to wake up in the morning and feel alive instead of just existing? Because that's what's at stake here. Not just your happiness, but your life, your future, your soul. I know it feels impossible right now. I know it feels like you're too far gone, like you've given too much, like there's no way out. But let me tell you something. It's not too late. You are not too far gone. You haven't lost yourself. You've just buried yourself under the weight of everything you've been carrying. And the moment you decide to let it go, the moment you decide to stop waiting, stop staying, stop sacrificing yourself for people who don't deserve you, that's the moment everything changes. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's hard. But what's harder? Staying where you are, losing more of yourself every day, watching your dreams slip further and further away, or taking a leap of faith, trusting that there's something better out there. And finally, giving yourself the chance to find it. The choice is yours. It always has been. But you have to make it. You have to decide that your life is worth more than this, that your happiness is worth fighting for, that you are worth saving, because you are. And the moment you realize that, the moment you stop waiting for someone else to save you, that's the moment you'll finally set yourself free. It's time. Time to stop staying silent, stop staying small, stop staying stuck. Time to let go of the fear, the doubt, the pain. Time to take the first step toward the life you deserve. Because the longer you wait, the more you lose. And you've lost enough already, don't you think? You've been in the darkness long enough. You've felt the weight of despair, the sting of betrayal. and the hopelessness of being. But here's the thing about darkness. It's where transformation begins. It's where seeds are planted, where phoenixes rise from ashes, where the first spark of change flickers. And that spark, it's you. It's always been you. Let me tell you something they don't want you to know. You have a weapon they never saw coming. It's not your anger, it's not your revenge, it's your absence. The moment you choose to remove yourself from their game, their control begins to crumble. They relied on your presence, your compliance, your willingness to stay. They never considered what would happen if you walked away. And that's their downfall. Leaving is not weakness, it's not surrender. It's the loudest declaration of worth you could ever make. It says, I am no longer available to be used, dismissed, or taken for granted. It says, I deserve more than this. It says, I choose me. And that choice, it's the beginning of everything they feared and everything you hoped for. Think about it. They thought they broke you. They thought they silenced you, dimmed your light, and stripped you of your power. But they forgot one crucial thing. A phoenix only rises from ashes. And you've been burned, yes, but you are far from broken. You are rising, slowly, steadily, fiercely, and when you do, they'll see it, they'll feel it, they'll regret every moment they underestimated you. The power of your absence is undeniable. It's not just silence, it's a ripple effect. It's the void they'll feel when you're no longer there to carry their burdens, to be their scapegoat, to fuel their egos. It's the quiet they'll hear when your voice is no longer filling their space. And that silence, it will echo louder than any scream ever could. The moment you choose yourself is the moment you finally start to live. Truly live. No more walking on eggshells. No more bending over backward to make everyone else happy. No more sacrificing your own joy for people who don't even see you. When you walk away, you create space. Space for peace, for growth, for happiness. You give yourself permission to thrive, to be free, to be whole. But it's not just about you. Your absence sends a message. It forces them to confront the reality they've been avoiding. They'll feel the weight of everything they took for granted. They'll feel the sting of losing what they thought they'd always have. And in that space, they'll be left with the consequences of their actions. That's not revenge, that's justice. Let me put it this way, when you're no longer there, they lose. They lose the power to hurt you. They lose the control they thought they had. They lose the energy they drained from you. They lose you. And the truth is, they'll never find another you. They'll search, they'll scramble, they'll try to fill the void you left, but they won't succeed because you are irreplaceable. Your light, your strength, your essence, there's nothing like it, and they'll realize that. Oh, they'll realize it. It's time to stop seeing your absence as a retreat and start seeing it as a reckoning. Walking away doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're taking back control. It means you're saying, I will no longer stay where I am not valued. I will no longer give my energy to people who don't deserve it. I will no longer sacrifice myself for someone else's comfort. Let's talk about what happens when you choose yourself. When you walk away, you create a ripple effect. You reclaim your time, your energy, your focus. You start to see yourself in a new light, not as someone who's been broken, but as someone who's survived. And survival, that's strength. That's resilience. That's power. Walking away isn't just about leaving them behind. It's about finding yourself. It's about rediscovering the person you were before the world told you to shrink. It's about becoming the person you were always meant to be. And when you do that, you don't just survive, you thrive. Think of it like this. Every step you take away from them is a step toward freedom. Every boundary you set is a declaration of self-worth. Every time you choose yourself over them, you're rewriting the narrative. You're no longer the victim. You're no longer the one who's being hurt, dismissed, or used. You're the hero of your own story. You're the one taking control. And here's the beautiful part. The moment you stop needing their validation, their approval, their recognition, is the moment you become unstoppable. Because they can't control you anymore. They can't hurt you. They can't touch you. And that's what they fear the most. So let me ask you, what are you waiting for? What's holding you back? Is it fear, doubt, the belief that you're not strong enough? Let me tell you something. You are strong enough. You've always been strong enough. The fact that you've survived this long, that you're still standing, that you're still here, is proof of that. It's time to rise. It's time to take back your power. It's time they thought they could keep you small, keep you quiet, keep you stuck. But they were wrong. Because you're so much more than they ever gave you credit for. And the moment you realize that, the moment you step into your power, is the moment everything changes. Your absence is not just silence. It's not just space. It's power. It's freedom. It's transformation. And when you embrace that, when you own it, you become unstoppable. You become the person you were always meant to be. And they lose the power to hurt you. They lose their control. They lose you. you. And trust me, they'll feel it. Oh, they'll feel it. And you'll finally be free. And now we reach the turning point, the moment when everything changes, the moment you stop looking at your pain as something that happened to you and start seeing it as the fire that will forge you. This isn't just the end of their story, this is the beginning of yours. Let me ask you something. What if your silence wasn't surrender? What if your absence wasn't an ending? What if it was the loudest, boldest declaration you could ever make? The moment they stop hearing your voice, stop feeling your presence, is the moment they'll finally understand what you were worth all along. But by then, it will be too late. You've spent so much of your life saying yes when your soul was screaming no. You've given when you were empty, stayed when you were breaking, fought for people who wouldn't lift a finger for you. Every time you silenced your own needs to prioritize theirs, you taught them something. You taught them that your needs didn't matter. But you're done teaching now. You're done giving them the manual on how to take you for granted. Because here's the truth, you are not their lesson to learn. You are your own masterpiece to create. They don't get to define you. They don't get to write your story. That pen, it's always been in your hands. You've just been too busy letting them steal the pages, but not anymore. Think about this moment right now. Feel the weight of everything you've endured. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every moment you felt invisible. It's heavy, isn't it? It's enough to make anyone want to collapse. But here's the thing about weight. It can crush you or it can make you stronger. And you're not gonna collapse. You're gonna rise. You're gonna take every ounce of pain they handed you and turn it into fuel. They didn't expect you to rise. They thought you'd stay small, stay quiet, stay in the shadows. They thought they could break you. But here you are, proving them wrong. Every time they doubted you, they handed you a spark. And now, you're a wildfire. This is the moment you realize your power. The moment you stop waiting for someone to see your worth and start seeing it for yourself. The moment you stop letting them define you, control you, and limit you. The moment you start ruling yourself rather than being ruled by them. That's because you are not small, you are not quiet, you are not weak. You are everything they told you you weren't. And they're about to see just how wrong they were. Absence isn't weakness. Absence isn't surrender. Absence is your masterpiece. It's the space where you build the life you deserve. It's the void you leave behind that forces them to confront their own emptiness. It's the silence that speaks louder than any words ever could. You spent so long thinking your worth was tied to what you could give, to how much you could endure, to how well you could keep the peace. But your worth isn't in your sacrifice. It's in your strength. It's in your ability to walk away from what doesn't serve you, to demand better, to choose yourself, even when it scares you. And I know it scares you. The unknown is terrifying. The idea of walking away, of stepping into a life you've never known, feels impossible. But let me ask you this, what's scarier, taking a leap into the unknown or staying where you are and watching yourself disappear piece by piece? You've already felt the weight of losing yourself. Now it's time to feel the freedom of finding yourself. You are not the sum of their opinions, their expectations, or their treatment. You are not defined by the times they overlooked you, underestimated you, or walked away. You are so much more. You are every dream you thought was out of reach, every strength you didn't know you had, every moment of resilience they never expected. You are your own masterpiece. And when you walk away, when you choose yourself, that's when they'll realize what they've lost. That's when the silence you leave behind will roar. They'll feel the absence of your light, your energy, your presence. And it will hurt. Oh, it will hurt. But by then it won't matter, because you'll be too busy rising. Every time you thought you couldn't survive, you did. Every time you thought you were broken, you proved yourself wrong. Every time you doubted your strength, you found it. And now, you're unstoppable. They tried to bury you, but they didn't know you were a seed. They tried to silence you, but they didn't know your silence would speak louder than their words. They tried to break you, but all they did was give you the pieces to build something unbreakable. This is your turning point. This is where their story ends, and yours begins. You are not the victim, you are the hero. You are not the lesson, you are the masterpiece. You are not small, you are infinite. So go ahead, walk away. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let them hear the roar of your silence. Let them see the strength they never believed you had. And as you rise, as you step into the life you've always deserved, remember this. Your absence is not just their punishment, it's your freedom. Now it's your turn to act. No more waiting, no more hoping, no more staying stuck. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Not a sign from the universe, not someone else's permission, but the decision to choose yourself. To say, enough is enough. To step away, to walk out, to reclaim your story. Let your absence speak louder than their lies. Let your silence echo with the truth they refuse to hear. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't owe them closure. Your absence will be the only explanation they'll ever need, and it will speak volumes more than your words ever could. But what comes next? How do you heal? How do you grow? How do you take all the broken pieces they left behind and build something stronger than they ever imagined? Let me walk you through it, step by step, because this is the part where your story truly begins. Step 1, build confidence from within. They tried to make you doubt yourself, but now it's time to rebuild that trust in yourself. Start small, write your truths down. Remind yourself who you are outside of their narratives. What are your strengths? What are your dreams? What makes you uniquely you? Write it, say it, believe it. Celebrate small wins. Every step you take, no matter how small, is progress. Leaving toxic spaces, setting boundaries, saying no when you mean it, all of these are victories. Celebrate them. Surround yourself with support. Find people who lift you up, who see your worth, who believe in your light. Their voices will drown out the echoes of doubt left behind. Step 2, find peace in the quiet. Your absence from their world means more space for your peace. Here's how to cultivate it. Take time for stillness. Sit in the silence you once feared. It's not emptiness, it's space for growth. Meditate, journal, breathe, let the quiet heal you. Reconnect with yourself. What brings you joy? What makes you feel alive? Do more of that. Rekindle old hobbies, explore new interests, and let yourself rediscover who you are outside of their shadows. Forgive yourself. Not for them, for you. Forgive yourself for staying too long, for giving too much, for doubting your worth. Release the guilt and make room for self-compassion. Step 3, redefine your identity. You are not who they said you were. You are not their perception of you, their criticism, or their lies. You are so much more. Now is the time to define yourself on your own terms. Set boundaries. Decide what you will and won't tolerate moving forward. Boundaries are not walls. They're the foundation of your self-respect. Create new goals. What do you want for your life? Dream big, and then start taking steps toward those dreams. Embrace your scars. The pain they caused didn't destroy you, it shaped you. Your scars are not weaknesses, they're proof of your resilience. Wear them proudly. Step 4, act on your power. You've discovered your strength, now it's time to use it. Power doesn't lie in what you endured, it lies in what you do next. Walk boldly into the future. Stop looking back. The past is a chapter, not the whole book. Lead the past as a chapter, not the whole book. And lead together whoever you are. Build a new narrative you're made in our image, in exact modeling the path of life. Face forward and let your future unfold. Help others. Share your story when you're ready. Be the person you needed when you were struggling. Your journey can inspire someone else to take their first step. Hold your head high. You are not a victim. You are not broken. You are a survivor, a fighter, a creator of your own destiny. This is not the end. Your absence from their world is not a retreat. It's an awakening. It's not the final chapter. It's the prologue to everything they never saw coming. You've been underestimated, overlooked, and undervalued, but not anymore. Now they'll see the truth. They'll see the power in your silence, the strength in your absence, the brilliance in your comeback. And as you rise, as you step into the life you've always deserved, remember this. Your absence is not the end. It's the beginning of everything they never thought you could be. This is your time, your story, your freedom. So go, step away, walk out, reclaim your story, and let the world feel the roar of your silence. Imagine it, the stillness after a storm, the emptiness they'll feel when the door slams shut behind you. That's not just silence, that's justice. That's the echo of everything they thought they had control over slipping through their fingers. Because here's the truth, your absence is not surrender, it's not giving up. It's the loudest declaration of power they'll ever hear. Let's talk about them for a second. The people who underestimated you. The ones who ignored your strength because it wasn't loud or flashy. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your patience for passivity. They thought they could walk all over you, keep you small, keep you quiet. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake, believing you'd stay. And you've been waiting, haven't you? Waiting for the right moment to prove them wrong. Waiting for someone to recognize your worth, to see you for the force of nature that you are. But here's the hard truth. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to hand you the respect you deserve. If you want them to feel the weight of who you are, you have to show them the power of what it means when you're no longer there. What if I told you that leaving wasn't just an escape? It was a reckoning. That the most devastating punishment for those who hurt you is not confrontation, not revenge, but absence. Think about it. They thrive on your reactions, on your attention, on the energy you give them, even when it's negative. So what happens when you take that away? What happens when you stop feeding the fire they thought they controlled? I know what you're thinking. If I leave, won't they think they've won? But let me ask you something else. Who wins when you stay? Because staying isn't peace. It's slow destruction. It's allowing them to chip away at you, piece by piece, until there's nothing left to give. Leaving, that's not defeat, that's survival. And more than that, it's power. Picture this. They're sitting in the space you used to fill, searching for you, waiting for you to come back. They feel the silence like a scream they can't escape. The weight of your absence presses down on them, reminding them of every moment they didn't appreciate, every opportunity they wasted, every chance they had to treat you better. That's not just silence. That's retribution. And it's something they never saw coming. Make being an unstable place as a besotted piece of crap. But you have to believe it. You have to see it for yourself. Because the truth is, you've been carrying them. You've been holding up the weight of their world, sacrificing your own joy just to keep them comfortable. And what have they done in return? They've drained you, belittled you, made you feel like you're not enough. But let me tell you something. You are not a lifeline for people who refuse to save themselves. You are not a crutch for people who will never stand on their own. Your absence is not just silence. It's a reckoning. It's the sound of boundaries being drawn, of strength being reclaimed, of a soul that refuses to be broken. And when they realize what they've lost, it will be too late. That's the lesson they'll never forget. But first, you have to choose yourself. You have to decide that your peace, your sanity, your happiness is worth more than their comfort. This is your wake-up call. It's time to stop waiting. Stop hoping they'll change. Stop giving them the privilege of your time, your energy, your presence. They don't deserve it. They never did. And the moment you leave, the moment you take back what's yours, they'll feel it. They'll feel the void you left behind like a wound that won't heal. So what's it going to be? Are you going to stay and let them keep taking? Or are you going to walk away and remind them what it feels like to lose you? Because trust me, they won't see it coming. And when they do, it will be too late. You're tired, aren't you? Tired in a way that no sleep could ever fix. It's not just physical exhaustion. It's the kind that sits heavy on your soul. Like you've been carrying the weight of the world on your back and no one even notices. You've been trying so hard to keep everything together, to be strong, to be enough. But deep down, you wonder if it's ever going to get easier. Abandonment, betrayal, exhaustion. These aren't just words to you. They're scars. They're the echoes of every time you've been left behind, every time someone promised they'd stay and didn't, every time you gave your heart only to have it shattered in return. You've spent so much time giving, so much time trying, that you've forgotten what it feels like to just breathe, to just exist for yourself. And yet, there's that constant nagging thought in the back of your mind. Why am I not enough? You wonder what you did wrong, what you could have done differently, what it is about you that makes people leave. But let me stop you right there. This isn't about you. It's about them. The people who failed to see your worth, who took your light and used it to warm themselves without ever thinking of giving back. You've been walking around with a mask on, haven't you? Smiling when you feel like crying, laughing when all you want to do is scream, pretending you're okay because the thought of letting people see the real you, the broken, vulnerable you, feels like too much. You've built walls so high that even you've started to believe you're untouchable, but inside those walls you feel isolated. Alone, like you're shouting into a storm, but the wind swallows every word. You've tried to be seen. Oh, how you've tried. You've bent over backward to prove your worth, to make people notice you, to make them care. But every time you got close, every time you let someone in, they used your openness against you. They made you regret it. So now, you keep your guard up, even though all you really want is for someone to break through it and tell you you're enough, that you're worth fighting for. Let's talk about the villain of your story. It's not just the people who hurt you, though they've played their part. It's the voices in your head, the ones that sound suspiciously like theirs, that keep telling you you're not good enough, that you'll never be enough. It's the societal pressures that make you feel like you have to be everything to everyone all the time. It's the toxic relationships that made you believe you had to shrink yourself to be loved. The villain isn't just one thing. It's a combination of everything that's ever made you doubt yourself. It's the friend who only called when they needed something, the lover who left without an explanation, the parent who told you to toughen up instead of offering comfort. It's the relentless expectations of a world that demands perfection but offers no grace. And worst of all, it's the voice in your head that started to believe those lies. But let me tell you something about that voice. It's wrong. Every word it speaks is a lie, planted there by people who wanted to keep you small because they were afraid of what you could become. They saw your potential before you did, and it scared them. So they did everything they could to convince you that you're not enough, that you're not worthy, that you don't matter. But you do. You always have. You've been through hell, and yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still fighting, even if it doesn't feel like it. Do you know what that means? It means you're stronger than you think. It means that every time they tried to break you, they failed. It means that the lies they told you about yourself don't define you. But I know it doesn't feel that way right now. Right now it feels like you're trapped in a cycle you can't escape. Like no matter how hard you try, you're always going to end up back here, tired, alone, and wondering why. But here's the truth. You're not stuck. You're not doomed. You're just carrying weight that was never yours to carry. You've been told you're not enough, but the reality is, you've been too much for people who couldn't handle you. You've been a force of nature in a world that wanted you to be small. And instead of celebrating your strength, they tried to dim your light. But that's on them, not you. So let me ask you this. How much longer are you going to let the villain win? How much longer are you going to believe the lies they told you? How much longer are you going to carry their weight on your shoulders when it was never yours to bear? You don't owe them anything. Not your time, not your energy, not your pain. You've been living in a world that's tried to convince you you're powerless. But let me remind you of something. Even the smallest spark can start a wildfire. Even the quietest voice can echo louder than thunder. And even the most broken heart can find a way to heal. You are not the person they said you were. You are not the sum of your mistakes or your pain. You are the potential they couldn't see, the strength they underestimated, the light they couldn't extinguish. And the moment you realize that, that's the moment the villain loses. That's the moment you start to win. You've been carrying their lies for long enough. It's time to let them go. It's time to see yourself for who you really are. It's time to stop shouting into the storm and realize that the storm is yours to command. The pain you feel is real, but it's not forever. And the lies they told you are loud, but they're not the truth. You are the truth. You always have been. You're stuck, and the longer you stay stuck, the more you feel yourself slipping away. Day by day, piece by piece, you're losing yourself. Not all at once, no, that would be too easy to recognize. It's slower than that, almost imperceptible, like sand slipping through your fingers. You tell yourself you'll hold on, that you'll stay strong, but deep down you feel it, don't you? The weight of staying in a place that's breaking you. The quiet, relentless erosion of who you are. This is what silence costs. This is what compliance demands. They want you to shrink, to silence the voice inside you that screams for something more. And every time you ignore that voice, every time you stay quiet when you want to speak, every time you make yourself small to keep others comfortable, you lose a little more. You trade pieces of your soul for scraps of peace, scraps of approval, scraps of validation. But is it worth it? Is it ever enough? Think about it. How long have you been waiting? Waiting for someone to notice you, to see your pain, to offer you a lifeline. Waiting for the people who hurt you to change. Waiting for the world to give you permission to be free.